Hello, and welcome to this WLRN live-streamed roundtable discussion on political lesbianism. I'm Thistle Pettersen, founding member of WLRN and your host for today's conversation. Before we begin, I'd like to explain how a roundtable discussion differs from a debate. In a roundtable, participants receive questions in advance, answer within set time limits, and engage in discussion and follow-up questions. A debate generally is more formal, rigid, and adversarial. I chose the roundtable format because I want a range of perspectives to be heard and discussed in a civil, thoughtful, and intentional manner, not only by our panelists, but also by you, our audience, joining us on this Summer Solstice 2026 broadcast. I was inspired to organize this discussion after seeing numerous social media commentaries criticizing both the concept of political lesbianism and Angela C. Wild's new book, I Wish I Was a Lesbian, just released by our good friends at Spinifex Press. I felt it was important to bring together women with differing viewpoints to share their thoughts, experiences, and observations on the topic. The panel came together through a combination of invitations and recommendations. I first reached out to Alexandra, Pinwheel Art, whom I've known for several years through feminist activism. She has publicly advocated for the rights and protections of girls and women and has contributed beautiful artwork to our movement. After seeing her share a commentary critical of political lesbianism, I thought she would be an excellent participant. She enthusiastically agreed and suggested Juliana Varney, with whom she had been having thoughtful discussions on the subject. Excuse me. And then I remembered that Jesika Gonzalez had shown interest to participate a long time ago. And so I reapproached her and she said yes. And she and I considered who might join her perspective on the panel. And I thought of Menasche, an outspoken feminist, political lesbian, and someone I have known since my early years in the feminist movement. Anne kindly agreed to join us as well. That's how our panel came together. And I want to emphasize that each speaker here is an individual and does not represent all women who support political lesbianism or all women who oppose it. Thank you in advance for approaching this discussion with curiosity, respect, and an open mind. Our chat moderator is Jocelyn C. from the WLRN team. She'll be overseeing audience comments, and personal attacks, trolling, and deliberately disruptive comments will not be tolerated. Jocelyn will make all moderation decisions. And if you'd like to submit a question for the panel, please type question in all caps so it can be flagged and brought to my attention. And then I'll try to put it up on the screen as well. Before we begin, WLRN is celebrating its 10th anniversary. If you'd like to support our network and pick up some anniversary merchandise, please visit WLRNmedia.com and click on the merch tab. This is our 10-year anniversary t-shirt designed by Margaret that reads Female-Only Frequencies Since 2016, incorporating a Venus symbol inspired microphone and power button design. Thank you, Margaret, for creating such a memorable logo. Now let the roundtable begin. A suggestion for our audience. Consider taking notes as the panelists speak. Jot down comments, observations, and questions for later, rather than posting them immediately in the chat. This will help you stay focused on what is being said and make for a more thoughtful discussion. Thank you. All right, to start us off, Jesika Gonzalez, a contributing author to I Wish I Was a Lesbian, this book, will share her opening remarks and explain why she believes this conversation is important. Jesika, The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Thistle. As Thistle said, my name is Jesika. I'm a contributor to Angela Wilde's book, I Wish I Was a Lesbian, from Feminists Press. The most important thing I'd like to get across today is that if you're a woman that has made the decision to walk away from men for whatever reason, whatever words you use to define that, or whether you assign words to it at all, be encouraged and forge ahead with that intention. Do not allow a discussion on literal semantics discourage you. If you read the book, you will see stories of regret among those of us that decided to become political lesbians and were argued back to bisexuality or heterosexuality by opponents of the idea. The result is suffering that those that argued us back to men won't know or care about. By arguing us back, they failed to acknowledge heterosexuality as more than a preference, but an institution, as Adrienne Rich discussed, and failed to recognize their individual roles in upholding it. Due to a refusal to reckon with the full depth of compulsory heterosexuality on that side of this debate, those women may never come around to our way of thinking. This means it may be in your best interest to simply keep your decision to yourself. If you must do it quietly, still do it. I do not mean you should hide your history or motivations from potential lovers. Sorry. As I state plainly in my piece in the book, be upfront about your intentions and be honest about your past. Political lesbians are women-identified women before anything else. There's obviously nothing women identified about deceiving women into relationships. The single most important question to apply to your personal choice is the same one I apply to political lesbianism and all radical feminist theory. Who benefits? Does it benefit born this way lesbians to push us back to bisexuality? Smaller dating pools, lesbian communities too small to sustain in-person networks, events, or establishments, less political power, reduced visibility. Does any of this improve any woman's material existence? Probably not, and it certainly does nothing to improve yours. There's simply too much drift between the categories heterosexual, bisexual, and lesbian over many women's lifetimes to pretend that every woman alive is born into and occupies just one of these groups for her whole life. To this day, there is no isolated biological cause or even set of biological circumstances that determine homosexuality. The only mildly compelling, to me, argument against the use of political lesbian is women adopting it with no skin in the fight, getting to enjoy the stolen valor, as you might call it, of lesbian struggle without having to endure the hardships it took to normalize it. However, at least some of us former bisexuals have faced consequences for our relationships with other girls, which persisted when we became women. Most of us would never claim to have suffered as much as those that came of age before, say, Ellen DeGeneres came out. But isn't that the whole point of struggle? To make it easier for those that come after you. For my part, I do not affix a label, bisexual or lesbian, to myself in day-to-day life. I work in manufacturing in a male-dominated environment. I am, however, openly out at my job. I speak freely about my girlfriend when conversation merits it. If there's a professional penalty to being a same-sex attracted woman in a male-dominated industry, I live every day prepared to pay it. Moreover, many political lesbians are on the front lines of pro-lesbian activism and always have been. Political lesbians are not to be confused with sexually experimenting women with no feminist consciousness. We have always fought to earn our keep. I cannot accept the impulse to condemn women like me to a lifetime of advertising our sexual availability to men by referring to ourselves as bisexual when we're not available to men. If I don't have a crush on any man, don't sleep with them, don't want to date them, in what way exactly am I bisexual? As a radical feminist, I believe concerted action will be required to overthrow the patriarchy. Political lesbianism is one of those actions. It does not require petitioning the state or asking men to change their behavior. That work is done, at least in the West. We can begin now. All you ever need is a critical mass. The golden age of lesbianism during the 1970s in the US and the UK was the last time we showed substantial movement in that direction. That golden age could not have existed without political lesbianism. That was the point in history when lesbianism was most threatening to the patriarchy. If its numbers are too few, lesbianism is no threat. This conversation matters now because data is emerging that women are already withdrawing from men. Birth rates are dropping, many heterosexual women are staying single for longer, and many women have taken up decentering men, not just radical feminists. We should seek to capitalize on this impulse. We want to make it socially safe and as frictionless as possible to choose political lesbianism, so that women toying with the idea of rejecting men aren't given reasons to go back. Support for political lesbianism is support for women's liberation. This is the time for women to build together with many more legal protections and social acceptance than lesbians have ever enjoyed before. Those are my opening comments. Thank you, Thistle.
Hey, Jesika, thank you. And when I said that, you can just write notes on the side and then think before you say anything in the comments audience, I just wanted to let you know if you wanted to put a hell yeah or something like that in there, that's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? For either side. I didn't mean to shut down the comments entirely. I just meant that if you had like a philosophical question, for example, maybe write that down and ask it later, So I just wanted to clarify that. So please feel free to comment in the chat if you wish. And welcome everyone to this WLRN live stream. I'm Thistle Pettersen. I'm your host. We just heard from Jesika Gonzalez. She's a contributing author to I don't know why my screen gets like that, but this book that just came out by Spin Effects Press. And now we're going to hear from Juliana Varney, and she is going to be, I'm going to hang on one moment. I'll be right with you. Okay. She'll introduce herself and she'll tell us why she thinks the discussion of political lesbianism is timely. So welcome to Juliana.
Hi Thistle. Hi everyone. Thanks for being here. Thank you for having me. My name is Juliana Varney, and I let's see my bio. A little bit about myself. I am I'm a feminist. I'm a lesbian. I didn't really do much activism or anything of that nature up until 2021. And I've gotten really involved in feminist discussions. And I feel like this discussion is important because even as a lesbian and someone that was trying to be as involved as I could in LGBTQ communities, to find, not only for dating, but just to find women to be friends with, find other lesbians. I wasn't really able to connect with anyone. So it's happened later in my life. I think this conversation is really important because it wasn't until I actually started becoming friends with other feminists, other women-identified women that were putting women first intentionally, that I heard the term political lesbian. And quite frankly, it really confused me in the beginning. I didn't understand what it was, what I was hearing. I didn't understand what could be political about being a lesbian. I think I've done a lot of studying on it myself, a lot of thinking about it myself. I believe I understand the concept. Jessica, I want to thank you for your introduction. I jotted some things down during yours that I'd like to think about a little more. But yeah, I think this is timely because I think that, like Jessica said, since the 70s, we really haven't had a mass of a movement. I'd love to see that again with women, putting women first. And that's really all I have to say. So thank you, Thistle, for having us here. Thank you for the discussion. I look forward to hearing everyone's points of view and to contribute.
Aw, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. And let me welcome the next speaker. We're going to hear from Anne Menasche. I've heard Anne's last name pronounced Menasche, and I've also heard it pronounced Menasche. She can maybe say how she likes it to be pronounced. We're going to hear from Anne, a founding member of Feminists in Struggle and contributing author to Angela's book. So thank you, Anne, for joining us.
You're welcome, and it's Menasche. You got it right the first time. I came out in the 1970s during the height of the feminist movement and the second wave and lesbian feminism. And I happened to land in San Francisco, which was very lucky for me, and into a vibrant, growing lesbian community. Sally Gerhardt said, women were leaving men in droves. That's what she said. And that was true. There was lesbian potlucks in each block, literally. There was all kinds of lesbian activities. There was, obviously women's music and coffee houses and all kinds of activism going on. And lesbians were in the forefront of a lot of the feminism that was going on then. So I fell right in, and my life changed upside down. I was listening to Alex Stop, a friend of mine, my first lesbian friend, gave me the Alex Stopkin album called Lavender Jane Loves Women, and I listened to it, and it said any woman can be a lesbian, and I thought, well, is that true? And I found that it was for me. So women's lives were affected and changed by the movement, and that's a part of our history. In those days, nobody believed, and I say nobody, I'm exaggerating just a little bit, but almost nobody, no lesbian feminist believed that we had a gene or some kind of thing in our brain that made us gay, that we were different from other women in some biological sense. We believed we were completely normal women, and we were, was nothing biologically distinct about us just because we were lesbians. So that's a new development, and I've read studies on this, and it really was not. Nobody thought that way. Gay men did more, but not lesbians. Anyway, so I never looked back, but some women actually did go back to men, as we put it, when times got harder. And I did a book on it, actually. It's called Leaving the Life, and it's kind of out of print. It's hard to find, but I actually did a study on women to find out why they stopped being lesbians or stopped living as lesbians. And I found a huge amount of social pressures, family rejection, economic pressures, self-hatred, all kinds of stuff that played a big role in that evolution that some women went through. So anyway, so I think a political lesbian is someone who understands the political nature of heterosexuality, essentially, understands that it's enforced, that it's mandatory, that it's an institution that is part of the oppression of women, and that women are not really free to love who we love or to live as we like to live. So I think that that's what a political lesbian is, someone who understands it and understands it in their own lives and understands the choices they made and why, and sees it in more of a political feminist way, like basically understanding the heterosexual institution, and that there's a nascent political feminist rebellion in the decision to embrace women as partners and lovers, life partners and lovers. And that's what a lesbian is. A lesbian is someone who does lesbianism, someone who lives exclusively as a lesbian, regardless of what they felt before. There's many roads to get there, but once you're there, if you're there and you're living exclusively relating to women as partners and lovers and romantic and sexual partners, you're a lesbian. So I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne. Anne Menasche of Feminists in Struggle, and also a contributing author to the book that came out by Spinifex Press called I Wish I Was a Lesbian. And so now we're going to hear from our final panelist. And by the way, this is the order that will be going in for the entire course of the day. And let me go now. We're going to hear from Pinwheel Art. She's a mother, a feminist activist, and an artist. So take it away, Pinwheel Art.
All right. So I guess I'm the odd woman out here. I am a mother. I'm a mother of 5, and I am heterosexual. I have discussed this issue a lot with my friends, with a lot of lesbians in my life. And, you know, I agree with much of what the women have said. I agree that it could be potentially a very powerful political movement. I think a lot of it is semantics, but I always look at everything. Well, let me back up a little bit. So I'm a feminist. I've always been a feminist. I grew up with my mother who was a feminist, and the way her feminism worked, it was always centering mothers and their children. We grew up in the Leche League, surrounded by other mothers with kids running around. I don't recall the fathers very much being in, I mean, they were there, but my memories are of the mothers and the children. So that has always been my feminism. And now that I've grown up and I've become a mother myself, I've seen that there's really a very crucial need to center mothers and our children in feminism. I've been to spaces where we have been absolutely rejected, which I'm sure a lot of women who have, you know, who are participating in political lesbian can relate to in different ways. But for me, that's the center of my lesbianism, of my feminism, is centering mothers and our children. I work as a doula. I'm a aspiring midwife. So that's all very important to me. And these women, of course, are getting pregnant with their male partners. So, you know, they're not going to exclude them from their life. They very much want to be mothers. They want to be with their partners. Many of them love their partners very much and have very good, healthy relationships. Of course, that's not always the case. We know from statistics that there's a lot of dangers from living with men and partnering with men. But in my eyes, I think we need to bring them with us. We need to be raising our male sons to do better so that we can have a better future. Because as a mother, I definitely look at this as fighting for their future. So a lesbian, you know, to me is a very specific thing. I think this political lesbianism is great to allow women to see that they can choose this if they feel confused about it. However, in my life, I feel like I kind of grew up in an opposite kind of world where everyone thought I was a lesbian when I was growing up for whatever reason, because I wasn't boy crazy. I don't know, because I had a lot of lesbian friends, because I don't know, like I was a girl's girl, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. So I never felt this pressure that I had to partner with a man. It was almost like I was expected to partner with a female. And that just wasn't where my heart went. And I think to say that anybody can take on women as partners is a little harmful or very harmful, because I'm not going to allow anybody access to my body that I'm not in love with. And if that happens to be, you know, if it's not women, it's not women. And that's how it is for me. It's not something that was ever outside of my, you know, sphere that I thought I couldn't be. It's just, I love having my children. I love pregnancy. I love childbirth, and it's going to continue to happen. And we need women there to hold that space, to bring life into the world, and not just life, but death as well. We also see life out of this world. So yeah, that's I guess I'll leave it there. That's a little bit about me. That's why I came to this conversation today, was because I just saw a lot of tension around this issue. I saw a lot of women, a lot of just hurt. I saw women feeling pain from this idea that they could choose, because it could go both ways. If you can choose to be a lesbian, you can choose to be heterosexual. So so that's why I came here today, and I'm so grateful to be in this space with you all, talking and kind of trying to work these things out in the world, because it's all very, very important to me. I love women with all my heart. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Alex. Something that I heard just real briefly in what you said is that you want to be welcomed into these women only, maybe lesbian focused spaces, and it's okay to be heterosexual. It's okay to be a mother and to have a feminism that focuses in on women and children, and I think, I got to go to Mishfest, and so I saw an environment where and I was heterosexual when I went the first time. And so I think, there's a place for every woman in women's spaces if they love women, and you obviously do. And so thank you so much for that. I really appreciated it. And now we're going to go on. Before we get responses from the panelists to each other's introductions and to questions from the live audience, we're going to get succinct definitions of the words lesbian and political lesbian from our panelists who've been pondering their definitions for days. First, we will hear from each panelist about her definitions of these two terms for 2 minutes or up to 2 minutes each, like a medium succinct definition for each of the terms. And that's going to be spoken verbally. Then we'll have a 2 to 4 minute break, and the panelists are going to write their succinctest definitions of the terms into our private chat, so you, the audience, will not see it. And then I'll read them off, and you, the live audience, in the chat, you can guess whose is, which speaker created the definitions after now getting to know each of them a little bit. So let me start again with Jesika Gonzalez. She has 2 minutes to focus on her definitions of these two terms, lesbian and political lesbian, in our common vernacular that is circulating in the women's movement now. Thank you, Jesika. Take it away.
Okay, so I know we've talked about this. I've read your explanations, but I just want to be clear that I should give my definition for lesbian and my definition for political lesbian, although don't be surprised if they're very similar to what I give you in the chat. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Thistle? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes.
Absolutely, it can be the same.
Got it. Okay. So for me, a lesbian is the same what it might be for many others, which is a lesbian is a woman that pursues romantic and sexual relationships and experiences with other women exclusively. A political lesbian is a woman that rejects romantic and sexual relationships with men and chooses to redirect that energy and those efforts to women. And those are my definitions.
Interesting. Awesome. I love that. Okay, thank you. We're going to go to our next speaker then. Okay, Juliana.
Hi. All right. So my definitions are going to be pretty basic. I believe a lesbian is an adult female homosexual. The definition of political, I just wrote down, political is basically a governance of a country or a society. So for me, political lesbian is a woman who believes she can choose to become a homosexual. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Juliana. Food for thought, and I am now going to bring on Anne. Anne, you're muted.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I agree with, I like Jessica's definitions, but I'll just say a lesbian is a woman who exclusively directs her emotional and romantic and sexual energy in relationships with other women. And that's what she is now and looking forward, regardless of what her past was. A political lesbian is someone who understands the political nature of compulsory heterosexuality as a political institution that is part of the oppression of women and is conscious of their life choices and understanding, patriarchy and that is a motivating factor in the way they decide to live their lives. So I think that's those two things.
Okay, thank you. That gave me a lot of food for thought as well. I look forward to seeing your written definitions. And let me now bring Pinwheel on.
My definition of lesbian is simply a woman or adult human female who enjoys making love to other women exclusively. Political lesbian, I believe that those are women who choose to exclude male partners from their lives as a political statement. And I think that's probably it.
Okay, awesome. So we got everyone's definitions that are on the panel. And now we're going to take a short break for like 3 to 4 minutes as they write. They're going to type their definitions, and then I'm going to put them up on the screen, and all of you in the chat can guess. I mean, some of them I think will be completely obvious, but maybe some others won't, because one of the rules that I sent to our panelists was that during this portion of our roundtable, they may change and tweak their definition during this 3 to 4 minute period and write something slightly different. You know what I mean? So we'll see what their definitions are and we'll match them to the panelists. Be back in a flash. Thanks for staying tuned to WLRN. And remember, it's our 10-year anniversary. We have wonderful merch at WLRNmedia.com. And we're going to take our break now. Welcome back to the second half of our show. I'm Thistle Pettersen, and my guests today are Jesika Gonzalez, Juliana Varney, and Menasche, and Pinwheel Art. We're continuing our discussion of political lesbianism, prompted in part by the book I Wish I Was a Lesbian. Ooh, here it is. I Wish I Was a Lesbian, edited by Angela C. Wild and published by Spinifex Press. And thank you to Spinifex Press for sending WLRN copies of the book for review and for this roundtable discussion. The views expressed by my guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect my views, WLRN, or its board. We present multiple perspectives to support open dialogue among women on important issues with the aim of strengthening understanding and solidarity, even where agreement is not possible. Now, let's move on to round two. The panelists were given these. Oh, wait, no, we're not doing that. We are looking at the definitions. So this one is an easy one. Go ahead. I'll start looking at the comments now instead of. So who do you think said this one? I mean, I can just write it in there if you don't want to guess and you're just chatting with each other. I think some of the panelists, let's see if anyone starts guessing. I've never tried this before, but I'm just going to write the answer because it was easy because she said it exactly like this. So this was, let's see if it goes into the comments. This was Alex Pinwheel. All right, so let's get a different one up there. Hang on one second. I'm copying and pasting them. And like I said, if you're in the chat, feel free to just pay attention to the chat, but it would be nice if you came over here and checked out these definitions. This next one, here we go. Lesbian, adult, female, homosexual. Which of our panelists said that as her definition? Again, okay, if you all are not in the mood to play, that's cool. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we're having some conversation in the chat. All right, it's cool. We heard all of our speakers' different views and their different, and I'm looking at the time too, because I don't want to keep you all too long. Thank you so much, speakers, for pondering your definitions. Some of them were longer than others, so I would like to try to get some of the other ones up there. This one that is up there, lesbian, adult, human, female, homosexual, was from Juliana. And then here's another one. Speakers, if you want to try to guess who said them. This one is kind of long. Oh, there's a comment. Let's see. Banners. Oh, I think it's going to fit. So here we go with this one. Political lesbian is a lesbian who understands the political nature of the heterosexual institution as part of the oppression of women and sees her life experiences in that context. Okay, who said that of our panelists? If anyone wants to guess in the comments, we'll see. Yes, AKA Turtle 1827. You are correct. That was Anne. Anne Menasche said that. Interesting. Okay. Let's move on to the next definition and who said it, potentially who said it. So far, nobody has been wrong. Banners. Enter a banner. Oh, yay. I'm so glad you all are keeping these short enough that they will fit. Political lesbian, a woman who chooses to exclude males as sexual partners as a political tactic or statement. She may be a lesbian, bi, or even heterosexual or celibate. Who said that? It was none other than Pinwheel Art. So thank you for that definition, Pinwheel. And we're going to move on to the next one. Political lesbian, a woman with feminist consciousness that rejects romantic and sexual relationships with men and chooses to redirect that energy and those efforts to women. Ooh. Huh. I see a slight change in this one from the way that I think she stated it before, actually. That's interesting. All right. So who said it? I'm looking in the comments. Let's see if anyone now knows. Yeah, Witchy Woman 3987. Cool. Witchy Woman got it. It's Jesika. She's the one who said that. Let's see. Let's do one more. I'm having fun with this. I hope you ladies, we've got, quite an audience out there. So some people are obviously paying attention to this. So who said this? Lesbian. A lesbian is a woman that pursues romantic and sexual relationships and experiences with other women. Wow, that's broad. It doesn't use the word exclusively, does it? Interesting. Who said that, my friends? Who said that? So, I don't see anyone else in there guessing. So I'm going to just let you know who said that. It was, lesbian. A lesbian is a woman that, it was Jesika. Again, this is Jesika's definition of a lesbian. Thank you, Jesika, for that. Let's see if someone did. All right. So why don't we move on? I'm looking at the time and we've gone for about 45 minutes. Welcome to those of you who are just tuning in, and to those of you who tune in after the fact. WLRN is celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and we're just so thrilled to host a roundtable discussion on such a potent topic, and a topic that makes sparks fly around in the 4th of July season here in America, because it's a lot of us at the station, WLRN, are American women, and all of our panelists are American women. So I just wanted to point out it's the 4th of July coming up, and now we've got all these. I like to think of falling in love and feeling that flirtatious feeling as like fireworks, sort of. And I don't want to digress, but here we go to move on. We do have, so we can take a break or we can just keep going. And I'm going to ask the panelists what they prefer. Panelists, can you give me a thumbs up if we just keep going and a thumbs down if we take our break? Oh, did you understand? I'm sorry. So a thumbs up if we just keep going. But if you would like to take a break before the next round where you're going to be speaking, give me a thumbs down, and then we'll take the break. Okay, you want the break. Juliana wants the break. We're going to take a break, my friends. So let me put that break banner back up, and also the beautiful artwork that Margaret created for us for this occasion today. So thank you, panelists and speakers. We're taking a short break, and then we'll be back to hear more about political lesbianism. Hey everyone, welcome back. After our short break, I'm Thistle Pettersen. We're having a discussion of political lesbianism by 4 feminist women in the USA, and Jesika Gonzalez, Juliana Varney, Anne Menasche, and Pinwheel Art, Alexandra. And so we are now going to, I put up on the screen a definition that I never put up. And so one of the speakers wanted it to be put there. It's political lesbian, a woman who believes she can choose to be homosexual and regards heterosexuality as an oppressive choice made by women who consciously or not wish to uphold patriarchy. Okay, so thank you so much for all of those definitions. And we're going to move on now to this question, which I'm going to put up, that all the speakers had this question. Well, it's a set of talking points, questions. They were given this in advance and told they would have 8 minutes each to speak about this, and then to take questions from the audience and to take questions from each other, or remark about each other, and that's going to come after these next 8-minute speeches that the speakers are going to make. Thank you so much to all of our speakers for being willing to do this. And thank you to our live audience and to our future audience that's going to be reviewing this. I feel like we're having a really good conversation. So let me bring... Oh, we've got the question up there, and then I'm going to bring on the speakers one by one, and I don't know if I can, I think I can put the speaker's name. Oh, no, I have to choose. So I think we'll just keep that up, and then maybe their name comes up. Here we go. Here we're adding Jesika. Oh, where's your name, Jesika? Oh, it's covered up. Let me just read.
It really matters to you. It's up to you, though.
I know. Let me just read what they were given. Is lesbianism natural or learned? When is it learned or not learned? What is biological about lesbianism, about heterosexuality? What is political about lesbianism and about heterosexuality? So those were the questions. And now I am going to ask for our dear guest, Jesika Gonzalez, to speak on this. Thank you so much, Jesika.
I wonder if it's possible, Thistle, for you to leave those questions up on the screen, because I did not prepare my comments for this section like I did for the introduction. So I would love to, thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
And I just want to say, you can talk about whatever you want, like for 8 minutes, but yes, please address these points.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll take up all that time. We'll see. So, is lesbianism natural? Okay. So before I say anything else, let's see what I branch off into once I say this, but I think before I say anything else, it's very important to understand that we were born into a paradigm and a context, and we might have theories and we might have feelings about the way things could or should be, but it's really going to be impossible for us to know what is natural and what is not natural unless and until long after the women's liberation. And I mean generations after the women's liberation, because all those feelings and all those thoughts, all those things we have are going to be tainted by being born into harsh, strict patriarchy. So I think that we could take guesses. It could be a fun thought exercise, but I just don't think that we will approximate genuine answers and a real understanding of women's sexuality because of the context in which we live. So let's see. So is lesbianism natural or learned? Now, I do believe that women and girls would have started at girlhood at the time of puberty or thereafter. As hormones begin to surge in the body, I think that if the institution of compulsory heterosexuality didn't exist, I do believe that that girls, as perhaps teenagers, would kind of pair off and would start to explore their bodies individually, and I assume together. but again, this is just spitballing, just imagining. When is it learned? Again, I think it would be probably organic. I would assume it would be probably like organic discovery. And that's why we have seen it spontaneously in different places. It just seems like something that would happen. And what is biological about lesbianism? Again, I think maybe, and even that is a maybe, because I do also have my own analysis about compulsory recreational sex and sexual activity that might be worth mentioning. So I have a personal idea that that this sense that we have about sex and sexuality, that we're driven to have recreational sex with each other, that even that should be critically analyzed as radical feminists. It's something that we all kind of take part in because we're in this society where, again, compulsory heterosexuality is a thing. Heterosexuality is an institution under patriarchy through its tool of heterosexuality as an institution. Men are granted access to females for sexual satisfaction. But I don't know that this is something that we would kind of organically kind of come up with if it weren't imposed on us already. So that's just something I want to mention, something that I think about. And about heterosexuality. Heterosexuality obviously is natural in the sense that humans are a dimorphic species, and that is how we propagate and how we reproduce, is through usually sexual intercourse. And of course, the egg and the sperm come together and create another human. But that's where I brought in my personal piece and my personal questions about recreational sex. And I actually don't think that heterosexual recreational sex is natural. I think that's entirely for the purpose of serving men's sexual needs or wants and desires. Like, I don't see, given the fact of the PIV orgasm disparity there, I just don't see how that's natural. I just think I think that everything we build up around sex and having sex with men is just for them and for their benefit. So I actually don't see how that's natural. I see sexual intercourse for procreation as natural. I actually see my personal hunch, because this is all hunches, right? Because as I stated at the top, I don't know what our sexuality is, and I don't believe that we will know until we eradicate patriarchy and liberate women and live in that way for some generations and let it unfold organically. But I actually think that perhaps lesbian sex may be more natural than heterosexual sex when we're talking about recreational sex, because there are no or fewer consequences, right? There isn't an undesired pregnancy that's always, kind of looming over heterosexuality. That wouldn't apply to homosexuality, certainly, of course, lesbian recreational sex. And what is political about lesbianism? So, Nina, I was kind of thinking in this very general, expansive way of thinking about how we came to sexuality, but now grounding ourselves back into the real world, into the universe in which we currently live. Lesbianism, I would say, is always political, because I do believe, as radical feminists, we kind of believe that the personal is political, and you do make choices in your everyday life that give you more power or take more power away from you, and then divert it and siphon it off to males and patriarchy. And so I think that even born this way, lesbianism, even if there are women, and there are women without real feminist consciousness that just happen to be attracted to other women, and they discovered that about themselves early, and they just always lived a life of lesbianism and would consider themselves, and we all might consider them born this way lesbians. I think even that's political, but incidentally, not consciously, and maybe nobody necessarily made the choice there. but just living your life in a way that doesn't put all that energy, all that romantic and mental and even physical efforts and energy into men, but instead into women, that is automatically political, in my opinion. Political lesbians, we take that the step further, because we came to that same kind of end in directing our energies and efforts to other women. We had a long circuitous route to that point. We had to do a lot of thinking, a lot of reckoning with the way we've been living life, with a lot of anguish and a lot of guilt and a lot of internal discussion with ourselves, and even with others, to get to a point where we do reach that end of making sure to redirect our energies and efforts to each other. I don't know how much time I have left, but in keeping with kind of the comments I made at the beginning, where I'm really encouraging any woman that's listening to this and might be on the fence, the opposition can be quite intimidating. I get it. But once you've made the decision to leave men, do it. I mean, just do it. And you don't have to call yourself anything. You don't have to blast yourself out on Facebook and say, I'm a political lesbian. I mean, unless you want to invite people to your page, women to your page, to be furious with you, but you don't have to. Like, you don't have to reveal that about yourself. You don't have to shout it from the rooftops. You can just move accordingly and see how life unfolds for you. And like I said, I think that this is a really great time for women to start making that decision, because it's easier now, because so many rights have been won and so many protections have been won, and there's so much social acceptance around same-sex relationships. And especially right now is a really good time where even what I would call normie women that don't read radical feminism and aren't in our turf spaces and aren't involved with us or movements in any ways, are realizing that they can dissenter men and they should dissenter men. And women are becoming more, in my opinion, the most important thing, more financially independent, and are able to make that happen for themselves, are able to turn their backs on men, whereas our foremothers really couldn't. So I think maybe I did take up that whole time. So sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine, Jesika. Thank you for all of that food for thought and for sharing.
I know it's so much. I'm sorry, the blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. That was wonderful. And, I think we all have different paths in life as women living under patriarchy. Like, it's pretty much every woman across the world is born into patriarchy and has an experience of it, and it feels bad, and we know how it harms women in multiple different ways, and we all have different paths. And so I think we don't have to worry about procreation, really, because women are always going to have babies, I think. And so for those of us who are not with babies and not with men, it's a much easier choice. So I just wanted to put that out there to those women who may be like that, who are like me, because then it's not a feeling of leaving men necessarily so much as it's, I'm not with men or children in my life because I don't know why, like it never appealed to me. I wanted to do whatever X, Y, and Z it is. And I just wanted to put that out there. Jesika, thank you so much. Let me have you come off stage. And next up, and I'll just keep the questions up there, and we will call on Juliana. Okay, Juliana, thank you so much for being here and answering these questions. The floor is yours for 8 minutes to do with what you wish.
All right, thanks, Thistle. So let's see, is lesbianism natural or learned? I know we spoke earlier, and a few of the speakers mentioned semantics and words, and call it what you'd like, but I have a hard time with that, and I think that that's possibly because I came into this, political lesbian and the feminist atmosphere because I was seeing the word woman used to no longer mean an adult human female. And so I do think words matter. I do think semantics matter. And I was thinking about this a lot. And lesbianism, I think, is a really interesting thing, because the word lesbianism, right? And then we have the word homosexuality. The word ism in the end of a word, and ism is a doctrine, a cause, or a theory. So putting ism at the end of the word lesbian turns an adult human female homosexual into a doctrine, a cause, a theory. It's not something tangible anymore. It's a concept. But then we have heterosexuality, ITY. ITY at the end of a word is the state, condition, or quality of being. So we're not really questioning heterosexuality or even homosexuality, because it just is. But lesbian, then it's up for debate. Now there's a question. Now it's a theory or a concept. And I kind of thought to myself, why don't we put that word? We don't have a word for that for gay, right? Gay is a male homosexual. We don't hear the word gayism. We don't hear the word homosexualism. But for some reason, women become a theory or a concept. Men don't. And I just wanted to put that out there as food for thought, because I thought it was interesting, and I do think it leads more to the patriarchal patriarchy in itself. Well, men aren't questioned, but women can become a concept or a theory, and then be kind of manipulated, for better or worse, with that concept. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Natural or learned and not learned. I agree with Jesika. It's hard to know what's learned and not learned, because we are affected by society. We're affected by everything that's around us. But I don't think we need to isolate or have some sort of gene that is a heterosexual or homosexual gene. I think, biologically speaking, we are mammals. The default is heterosexuality. I don't think that has anything, I think that is natural. I don't think that has anything to do with men or patriarchy. I think that is something inside of us that is naturally there. In order to recreate and sustain society and humanity, we need babies. So I do think that heterosexuality is the norm and homosexuality is not. Now, just because it's abnormal doesn't make it wrong or off in any way. It's just not the norm. What is political about lesbianism and about heterosexuality? I believe there is nothing innately political about our sexuality, but I think the institutions that we are born into and that have been created in the world have made have almost made everything political. Identity politics, right? The personal is political. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, because I've never considered myself an incredibly political person. I understand being a separatist, a woman that does not want to uphold man, does not want to uphold patriarchy. And I do have a question about political lesbianism. I'll put it out here right now. I'm not sure if this is the time or not, but I would like to know, just for women that define themselves or call themselves political lesbians, I'm curious what you do in your life that you are decentering men, and what does that look like to you?
Hey, Juliana,
Yes.
if you write that into the chat, then we can have that as a question from you to the other panelists,
Oh, great. Okay.
I think that's a really wonderful question. And also just thank you again for being here and having a good attitude and opening up and sharing your thoughts. And I'm just appreciating how everything's going. So thank you, Juliana. And next
Thank
we're
you.
going to hear from Menasche, and she is going to be speaking to the questions that are on the screen here. And Menasche, you've got 8 minutes.
Okay. All right. Is lesbianism natural or learned? It's definitely natural, and as in all sexuality, it has a learning element. You always learn. My dog learns. Apes learn. We all learn. Animals learn. But if we talk about the biological grounding of it, sexuality in intelligent social beings, mammals, not just mammals, but particularly mammals I'm thinking of, has both reproduction as a goal and bonding. And so if you look at our closest relatives, it's the bonobo chimps, and they're closer to us than other chimps, that they stand upright, and they also don't go through estrus. They're like sexual all the time, like we are. And they have very, very much just a ton of same-sex relating as part of their bonding, and particularly among the female bonobos, interestingly enough. And it's even a majority of the sexuality. So that's our biological base. We're social creatures, and we're affected by society. We're taught to be heterosexual from the time we're little. Some people don't. What I would say is that everyone can be a lesbian, definitely, but some women may have more potential than others, and that's based on not fitting into the roles and stereotypes. And some women, none of us fit in really, but some of us have more problems fitting in than others. And so those who are what they call gender nonconforming or violating sex stereotypes are going to more likely be gay. And I think that's true with men as well. So in this society, but that's how it's constructed in this society. The underlying natural part is the bonobos. That's basically it. So it is completely natural. And the learning is you learn from experience. So obviously, you have to learn how to relate to another woman and everything else. But anyway, can I look at the rest of the questions? I think somebody just, okay, great. Biological, as I said, sexuality is not purely for reproduction, it's also for bonding. And the bonding between women is what is completely natural. Heterosexuality, as a sexuality, is completely socially constructed. Heterosexual sex is necessary for reproduction. So in that sense, it's natural. But heterosexuality as we know it, as a way of life, as a partnering with men for life, or exclusively partnering with men, that's completely a social construct. What is political about lesbianism is that you are saying no to men and yes to women, and that goes against the patriarchy, because a woman's primary role in our society and in all patriarchal societies is for us to serve men, to take care of men and children. That's our primary role. And if we no longer focus on men and no longer have them as our partners or whatever, our husbands, and we are, it's an act of rebellion. We are refusing to play that subordinate role, which usually, even nowadays, is still involved in heterosexual relationships. So there's, as Adrian just recognized, there's a nascent rebellion involved in choosing women as your lovers and life partners. So that's what's political, whether you're conscious about it or not. Whether you think you were born that way or not, there is a rebellion involved there. So I think did I answer everything? I think I did it. I answered the questions.
Well, what is political about heterosexuality?
Well, okay. Was that in there? Oh, what is political about? Oh, I see. What is political about heterosexuality is heterosexuality is mandated. It's compulsory, particularly for women, even more so than for men. It's our main role in life is to take care of men and children, but that's our main role in life. So It's political because men have power over women, and because we're involved in relating to them and giving them primacy at least in our personal lives. It doesn't mean you can't be a feminist. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there's a political aspect to those relationships and the compulsory nature of them.
Oh, okay. Anne, I just appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us, and the history, super important. And I think finally we're going to hear from, let me just do something. Okay. Oh, wait. Finally, we're going to hear from Pinwheel Art, and she is going to be speaking to the questions that you see on the screen. Thank you, Pinwheel.
All right. Great words from everybody. Really enjoyed that. Is lesbianism natural or learned? I would just want to go back to what Jules said about these isms and like heterosexuality. I think it's more so lesbianality would be the term that we'd want to use for this, and it being natural or learned. I think it could be both. I think that we could that some women are just, they go into when they figure out their sexuality, they realize they're lesbians, that's what they are. It's completely natural. I think in other ways it can be learned. It seems like a lot of these women calling themselves political lesbians have found women who've said, oh, I didn't realize that I could be a lesbian. And I think that's great. I think we should definitely help women to realize that it's a possibility, that you can definitely be lesbian and that's okay. I also think that there might be some situations where there's a lot of trauma that they experience in life from males, and will decide that they would rather just have female partners, and in that case you might be bisexual. I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research into this, but just off the top of my head, that's kind of what I think about if it's learned or natural. What is biological about lesbianism? Well, if you call it lesbianism, it's a political ideology or anything like that. So lesbianality, I would say what's biological about it is, like I said, there are just some females that come into their sexuality and realize that that's what they enjoy. That's who they love. That's who they want to partner with and have romantic and sexual relationships with. About heterosexuality, of course, that like the speakers before me have said, it makes sense that that's natural for reproduction and bonding and things like that. What's biological? And of course, you need to have a male to create life. And that's something that I really focus on, because if you, I was looking at some of the documentaries and things, and Sheila Jeffries talking, and she kind of talked about, and I've heard this from other feminists as well, that we have all this technology now. But the thing is that that's very base level. Like, you're not looking at it fully and in depth. The thing is, with all these reproductive technologies, that's very transhumanist. That's very much where they want us to go. There's a lot of risks and a lot of, lifelong chronic illnesses that you get from these situations where you're depending on technology. Our evolution has gotten us to a place where reproduction is nearly perfect. We pick our partners based on bearing immune systems so that we'll have stronger offspring. Your cycle is only going to be, you're only fertile for a very short time in your cycle. That's what we need to be starting to educate young women on as well, so they don't think that they can just get pregnant any time of the day, any time of the week, any time of the month. There's very specific timing for that. And that's when the sperm's going to be able to get to the egg. Those are cervical fluids. They also control that. The egg, as we know, also decides what sperm to let in. All these things are very important to having strong, adaptable offspring. And if we use reproductive technologies, cut that out, think that we can play God, that's very dangerous and harmful to women, first and foremost, and to our babies, our children. So that's where I go with all of that. But I know I haven't heard that talked about a lot. I know a lot of women aren't in that space, but that's my space as a birth worker. These things are very important to me. Making sure that our babies are born into this world, not in violence as they are right now, with the majority of them being born in hospitals. It's very violent. So I want to get women, my goal is to get women out of those institutions. That's what I think is most important. Not becoming a lesbian and saying you're going to sleep with women, but actually removing ourselves from those institutions. How are you removing yourself from those institutions? From the, from the legal, from the universities, from the medical institutions that are literally killing women and babies, and, things that are preventable. So what is political about lesbianism? Well, the whole term is is an ideology in that sense when you say lesbianism. So that is political, that's a political idea, but being a lesbian, lesbianality, that is, I think, natural. Or bisexual, and you can then choose to just exclusively be with women. And what's political about heterosexuality? So much is political about heterosexuality. I don't think that we were meant to be like this. I do think that we were, like you were talking about the bonobos, like I really do think we were meant to be more like that, where women are coming together and raising the children and centering the mother and making sure that we're raising better people. That's where I go with this. So heterosexuality, yes, we can partner with men, we can make babies with men, but then the majority of our time and community and life should be centered around women and children. And that's how, like I said at the beginning, that's kind of how I was brought up. And it's a really beautiful, powerful thing, not just excluding men, but kind of bringing them with us. When they see these things, when they see birth not in violence, when they see how powerful we are, when we bring forth this life, it changes something in them. When our sons see that, when our daughters see that, it's such a powerful thing that I do not see spoken about enough in feminism. So I really want to, join those things together, but I know I'm going off on a little tangent here, but so I think I covered all the questions.
Yeah, and I love your passion. It's clear to me that you are a feminist, that you are woman-centered, and you're focusing on babies and giving birth, and that's, midwifery, and that's a whole other realm of feminism and working with women, and that's why I think this is just me off the top of my head, but that's why it's important to create women-only spaces. And Mishfest had this conversation about children and how old is the oldest male child that could come into the festival. And some women said 4 or 5, and other women said 10, but they finally came up with 6, or I can't remember what the age limit was. But then they created a camp Sun, S-O-N, with a big sunshine or something like that. Brother Sun, I think is what it was called, where those boys could go so that the women like you could come to the women-only space where lesbians were the dominant culture and coexisted with other women that are also feminists. And I want us to get back to that. But that's why Mishfest was so powerful, and it was shut down by our mutual enemies, which are these, the trans activists bullshit, which we fully agree on. So I'm feeling optimistic, Alexandra. I just thank you for your comments. And I would like to, that was everybody. So now if I have a question actually from one of our, and I'm going to put it up as a banner. One of our panelists asked of the other panelists who are political lesbians, and sorry, I'm going to remove you, or actually I'm going to bring everybody on. Everyone's coming on. Everyone, hello. So to the political lesbians on our panel, what do you do in your lives that makes you a political lesbian? What are your interactions with men?
Anne, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Oh, go ahead, Jesika. Take the floor. Do it.
Sure, yeah. So I'm a political lesbian because I meet this definition here. I provided a woman with feminist consciousness that rejects romantic and sexual relationships with men and chooses to redirect that energy and those efforts to women. And so that's what makes me a political lesbian, is just making sure to not indulge in any or pursue any or look to any sexual or romantic relationships with men, and then just always stay focused on women for that. And what are my interactions with men? Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement, I do work in manufacturing, so it's a lot of men, not exclusively men. There are some women, and I'm grateful for that. There are women in leadership. There are women on the floor. So there are a lot more of us than I'm sure there used to be in the past. So that's great, but it's still, of course, large abundance, predominantly men. So I interact with men on a daily. But I would say, that's for my job, that's for my career, that's to make money that I need to make to sustain myself. It's not my ideal circumstance, but it is what it is. I think that, something I want to mention, though, is that ultimately, for my vision of how we should carry out the women's liberation, I have a nonviolent philosophy about how this would go, how it would need to go. And I do think we need to understand men. The way I do think that, we racialized people have to understand white people, have to understand how they think, have to know how to work with them, because we're not just going to take up arms and kill everybody. I think that's the same with men. So it's like, I don't enjoy it, but we have to know what we're dealing with, and we have to know basically we have to know
Okay,
what we're
well,
dealing
thank
with.
you for that response. Anne, would you like to respond? And then we're going to go to this question from our live audience. So just realize this question is in the wings, but go ahead, Anne. You're going to be talking about this one. I think you're muted, Anne.
I've been living an exclusively lesbian life for half a century, meaning that my partners are exclusively women, and my social life tends to be as well, though we've lost a lot of lesbian communities, so it seems like my women's community is mostly remote these days, which we've lost so much. And as my political understanding, and it doesn't mean that it's an exercise in my mind and my body and my sexuality are all interconnected. It's not a separate intellectual exercise, my lesbianism, and my coming out was not a intellectual exercise either. It was emotional and sexual and erotic, as well as political, conscious political. So it was everything together. So anyway, that's never changed. My interactions with men, I work with men sometimes politically. I work with men in the legal field sometimes. It's pretty not like super close normally. Friendship is hard. I thought I had a male friend in the Green Party who completely betrayed me on the trans stuff. So, but anyway, it's still hard. And so it's pretty distant. I do have a brother-in-law who comes to our house regularly. And I have a nephew.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that a lot of political lesbians every political lesbian has a father, whether that father was present in her life or not. It's, just because you're a political lesbian doesn't mean that you don't have prior relationships with men that are based on the fact of being a human being and having sexual, reproductive, or what is that called? The dimorphic species, and that man might be present in your life, and you grew up with him. And so a lot of political lesbians are in touch with their fathers or their brothers or, anyway, just wanted to put that out there.
Right. So, yeah. So, I live an active life, and so, I would love to be in an all women's community, lesbian feminist community. I would love to have even the community we had before that seemed to have dissipated mostly. I would love to have that in person again, but it's kind of died out in San Diego and in most places. But I'm a separatist and I'm not a separatist because I'm a socialist and I'm a radical feminist. I'm a lesbian feminist. So I believe it's sometimes necessary to have male allies, though you have to be careful with them because they're not usually or completely trustworthy. But it's okay to have male allies. It's okay to relate to men as needed. But my core, my center is women, and even working with women, even in my legal profession, I still prefer to work with women.
And so
that's-
interesting, Anne, to hear you say that, and that Alexandra said that as well. And I just wanted to point that out. And I wanted to also say that some political lesbians have male children. So it's complicated, women. It's definitely very complicated. And as feminists, we don't want to be purists. We want to love women. We want to center women. We want to love women. We want women to be able to come to the movement as they are and learn, and also stimulate and teach, you know, to have that egalitarian relationship that we don't have in patriarchy. So I just wanted to point that out. And now we're going to go. This is a sincere question. Is an attraction to men completely gone? I guess that's to the political lesbians.
Yes, at this point, yeah. I would say yes.
Okay. And how about you, Jesika, if you want to
Yes,
answer that?
yes, definitely yes. And I'm going to use this opportunity to plug the book again, because this is something that comes up in the book, and there are women in the book that come from heterosexuality. One of the pieces in it, I wish I had, realized I was going to think of this while we were discussing. There's a woman that came from heterosexuality, and she didn't even. My understanding, how I remember it, is she didn't even begin her journey seeking to be a lesbian. She just knew she was going to turn away from women, but that brought her into women's spaces, and there was like,
You mean
so
turn
touching.
away from
I'm like
men?
getting
Sorry, you
goosebumps.
said turn away from women. You meant turn away from.
So sorry. Yes. Thank you for the correction, Thistle. Really appreciate that. And talking to you too fast. Getting away from men. She found herself in women's spaces. And a lesbian came up and was kind of flirting with her. And before she knew it, she's flirting back. And again, she always saw herself as a heterosexual, but her interest was there and her attraction was there, and it began to grow from there. So these things can happen, do happen. I encourage, some women, really are like really against us and how we think, but maybe it might help to at least get a sense of how we got to where we are.
Oh, Jesika,
really
thank you
touching,
for
really
plugging
good.
the book. Yeah, and also just so our listeners know, I'm gonna be interviewing Angela Wild, and so we'll be getting some perspectives from her. Also, when we put out our podcast in August, just since we're on the topic of WLRN, it is our 10-year anniversary. We'd love it if you showed your pride for feminist media, indie media, in getting a t-shirt or a mug. We have these beautiful mugs too. I would like to say about Mishfest again, that women-only space and how things naturally come up. It's like your consciousness is changed. So you may be thinking in one way, and you may think that, and I also want to say how that flirtation between women, I think, is natural, and it doesn't have to be sexual in the sense of like, we're going to get down and dirty and we're going to be sucking on each other or something like that, something gross like that. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking this is so much fun. It feels like, like it's so uplifting. And so I think being able to mention that joy of being in women-only spaces and how that can change a woman's consciousness, and so she can start to feel like, oh, maybe I can be a lesbian because I'm having so much fun with all these women. If you're just going to work every day and sitting in a cubicle and all your coworkers are male, you're never going to know what it feels like to be in that women's community that accepts women like Alexandra, because Mishfest went through a long period. It was there for 40 years. And I'm telling you, it was shut down by trans activism, And so if we can get a women's community going again, that we all have that agreement that trans activism is not a good thing, I think it'll help build the movement and help more women to come to that feeling of, wow, I do love women and I can feel that really, flirtatious, fun energy with them. And maybe I'm not going to be in a sexual relationship with them, but I can still feel that. And I just feel like patriarchy really forces us to think about sex and the boom, 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 like, oh, baby type thing. And it's like, that's not how I experience my life. I'm much happier flitting around at the Mishfest with little lights, fairy lights on the trails, and then there's rock and roll up on the stage and these amazing musicians playing, you know, just like you would get at a regular festival. I was lucky to be able to see it back in 1999? I think I went, or 98. And then I went, and I was a heterosexual. I was not a lesbian, you know? And then I went in 2000, and I'm 57. So I was 28 or 29 when I went. And so for the first time, and I came back and I did not identify as a lesbian when I came back, you know, but I felt welcomed. I felt like I had a place there as a female, as a woman. And I saw that they had through time there was a camp, like I said, brother, son, and that women with children were welcome to come with children. They had so many different neighborhoods. We're talking thousands of women, you know, and so there's so much joy in women's community. And I feel like if we can feed the flames of women's community, we'll feed the flames of lesbianism and radical feminism hand in hand. And I just wanted to thank everyone for participating. Let me just see if there are any other questions from the audience. It doesn't seem like there are. I'm going to just put up a final banner. This is, oh, it's a ticker tape. I could have had that on the whole time. So let me just do this one and take off that media. Oh, shoot, what is that called? I'm sorry, I'll have to edit all of this out we don't have to edit it out. Oh, anyway, thanks for coming to the show. I guess it's going to end with that sincere question, which I really don't want it to. I want to get that off there. Oh, I know where to go. Sincere question up here. It's way up here. It is. Hide. Okay, thank you so much. And we will leave you with, I'm going to have the guests go off and then I'm going to just say my thing. Thank you to all of the guests that participated in this discussion today. And thank you for your patience as I was, working on which banners should be up there and who's speaking and all of that. Oh my gosh, sorry. I'm still trying to get that one to go away. Why won't that one go away? I don't remember which. Anyway, I shouldn't be obsessing about technology right now. I should just be allowing all of you to go about your summer solstice and just thanking you. And thanks to Spinifex Press. Thank you to Jesika. Thank you to Juliana. Thank you to Alexandra. Thank you to Anne Menasche. Thank you to my sisters at WLRN. Thank you to Jocelyn for really stepping up and helping out with the comments. And thank you to all of you who listen to WLRN and have been guests on WLRN. We really are American women's community media, community radio here. And we'd love to hear from you and have a wonderful day.